We're pivoting to a model that doesn't include your function anymore.
That was all he said, just that one sentence. Clinical and clean. No explanation, no empathy. Just a decision, already made. He didn't fire me. He didn't yell. He didn't even look me in the eye. But when I walked back into the office after just 1 week away, I knew the game had already started. Not the kind with announcements, or dramatic ultimatums, or open conflict. This was something far more dangerous, something silent, something calculated. It started with a feeling. I stepped through the glass doors of Halcyon Crest Realty, like I'd done for over a decade. The marble floors still gleamed. The receptionist still offered the same tight smile. The elevator still chimed with the same soft ding on every floor, but the air was different, heavier, tighter, like the walls had closed in just a little, like the space I'd once known, down to every light flicker and hallway echo, had shifted while I wasn't looking. People I had shared 10 years of late nights, quick coffees, emergency file rescues, and off-the-record venting sessions, with barely looked up. Some offered nods that never reached their eyes. Others didn't greet me at all. One even flinched a little when I said her name. I smiled out of habit, out of politeness, out of training. Their eyes flickered, then dropped. I didn't push it. I told myself, maybe they're just busy. Maybe they're deep into end-of-quarter mode. Maybe they don't know what to say after hearing my mother had been in the hospital. But deep down, I already knew. I just didn't have the words for it yet. When I reached my desk, the first thing I noticed was that my monitor had been shifted, not replaced, not removed, just adjusted, tilted, as if someone else had sat here recently and hadn't bothered to put it back. My plant, a resilient little snake plant, I'd nursed through 6 budget cycles, and 1 mold scare, was gone. The mug with my initials had been pushed to the edge of the shelf, its handle turned inward, like it was waiting to be boxed. I sat slowly, the chair creaking just slightly under my weight. My nameplate was still there, but suddenly it felt like a lie. The hallway buzzed with subdued energy, doors opened and closed with unfamiliar frequency. I caught a glimpse of new faces, newer suits and shoes that clicked just a little too sharply on tile. Then came the first real hit, Clive Victor Ames. Our longtime CEO was gone. Not gone like out to lunch or on vacation. Gone. He had retired quietly, without a formal send-off, without even a last floor-wide email. No celebration, no speeches, just a brief "Victor will be transitioning out of leadership over the next 2 weeks" blurb, buried in a company update email from HR that I'd missed while helping my mother recover from her 2nd round of dialysis. 12 years of leadership erased in 1 paragraph. And in his place, Coulter Maddox. I had seen the name in the transition email. I'd even skimmed his LinkedIn strategic, polished, flashy, the kind of executive who said words like scalable innovation and disruptive momentum with a straight face. Still, I didn't expect the cold. The first time we passed each other, me coming out of the break room, him stepping off the elevator, he didn't speak, didn't nod, didn't smile, just looked at me, or rather through me as if I were furniture, as if I were temporary. I told myself not to take it personally. Maybe he was busy. Maybe he was still adjusting. But then came Monday's meeting. For the past 3 years, I had led the Monday Sync 30 minutes, cross-departmental updates, open items, top-level metrics, light reminders. This week, when I walked into the room right on time, everyone was already seated. The projector was already running. The header slide read, "Weekly alignment led by MGT." I stood by the door, uncertain. No one moved to make room for me at the head of the table. Coulter stood at the front, relaxed in a slate suit, cufflinks just barely catching the light. "Let's begin," he said without glancing my way. And just like that, I was a guest in a room I had built. He ran the meeting, efficient, fast, mechanical, no humor, no warmth, just bullet points. When I offered a brief update on one of the forecasting tools I'd been refining, he cut in before I could finish. "I know you're used to how things used to be, Vivian," he said with a smile that felt carved from ice. "But we're in the age of speed now. If it can't scale, it doesn't stay." Silence followed. One person coughed, another shifted in their chair. I sat back, said nothing. The meeting wrapped up 10 minutes early. No one made eye contact on the way out. By Wednesday, I had lost 2 of my biggest accounts. No email, no heads up, no explanation. They simply disappeared from my dashboard. Reassigned to Ellis Grant, a bright, eager 20-something with good instincts and a tendency to speak before thinking. He gave me an awkward smile in the hallway, the kind you give a stranger whose parking spot you accidentally took. I smiled back out of reflex, not warmth, and then I sat at my desk and stared at the login screen of our proprietary ops system, the one I had helped build from scratch with Clive. I typed in my credentials, same username, same password, access denied. I blinked, tried again, same result. At first I thought maybe I'd mistyped, maybe it had updated something. I emailed, Edge, our system administrator. 3 hours later, a reply arrived. 1 line. Access removed per leadership instruction. That word leadership suddenly felt like a blade. Still, I showed up. I didn't argue, I didn't complain. I didn't storm into HR. I just showed up. Kept notes, tracked behaviors, because this wasn't just about a project, or a login, or even a job. This was personal. This was targeted. And the most dangerous thing about it, it wasn't loud, it was silent. No pink slips, no confrontation, just a quiet erasure, a redefinition. They weren't firing me, they were unwriting me. That Thursday, as I stood by the window overlooking Tremont Street, watching the city move as if nothing was unraveling behind the glass, I knew I didn't hear a gunshot, but I had been targeted, and the worst part, no one else seemed to notice. Or if they did, they had already chosen silence. It didn't happen all at once. That's the thing about being erased. It's never sudden. It's a slow peel, a careful unthreading, so subtle you almost miss it. Almost. The next Monday, I arrived early. Not to prove anything. Not out of pride, just habit. I had started my weeks at 7:45 a.m., sharp for the last 9 years. I liked the silence, the clarity before meetings began, and the Slack pings started stacking up. But the silence felt different now. I passed by the glass corridor to conference room to A. The lights were already on. The table already full. Coffee cups in hand, laptops open. Coulter Maddox stood at the head of the table. He hadn't invited me. That wasn't an oversight. I had organized that Monday sync for over 3 years. Created the format. Developed the metric sheet. Designed the auto-update template that the team still used. I stood at the doorway. No one looked up except for Lyra. She blinked at me, lips tightening. She didn't wave, but she didn't look away either. I held her gaze for a second. Then I walked away, slowly, quietly. Back at my desk, my name was still on the cube wall, etched neatly in silver Vivian cross. Strategic operations. But that wall had become just that. A wall. I opened my email. A new folder had appeared. Reassignments inside 2 files. The first project Monarch, point lead, Ellis Grant. The second, Sunfire proposal, support, Ellis lead Maddox. No explanation, no context, just a clear message. You're out. I stared at the screen for a long time. No fury, no drama, just that quiet sinking understanding. This was how it would happen. Not with a termination, but with displacement. Not with fire, with frost. That afternoon, I decided to speak up. Just a little. It was a strategy call with the West Coast partners. The usual client delay was pushing us dangerously close to non-compliance on reporting. I offered a workaround, something small. A sequence I'd used in a similar situation 6 months ago. It saved us 40 hours and re-established trust with the vendor. I didn't expect applause, I just wanted to contribute. Coulter didn't even wait for me to finish. I understand you're used to the old way of doing things, Vivienne, he said. His smile stretched tight, but this is the era of speed. That phrase again. The room fell quiet. Not stunned, just still complicit. No one met my eyes, not even the ones who had thanked me in private chats for solving their data sync issues. Not even the ones who used to swing by my desk at 6:15 p.m., begging for help polishing a pitch deck. The silence wasn't ignorance, it was alignment. The next morning, I found an email flagged, HR confidential subject realignment of compensation based on current role performance metrics. Effective immediately, my salary would be reduced by 35%, just like that. No conversation, no review, just a line item in someone's spreadsheet and a signature from someone who'd never shaken my hand. I stared at the screen. My heart didn't race, my breath didn't hitch, because by then I wasn't surprised, only deeply, deeply awake. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't complain to HR. I didn't call an employment lawyer. I did something else. I watched. 2 days later, I joined another meeting, this time a Q3 alignment call with department heads. I wasn't on the speaker list, but I'd been added to the invite, maybe by mistake. The chairs filled quickly. Nervous laughter buzzed at first. People clicking into their laptops, no small talk, no side jokes. I sat near the end of the table, my usual seat. Not because I wanted to cling to old patterns, just because it was mine, or had been. No one stopped me, no one welcomed me. Coulter entered 5 minutes late, adjusted his cuffs, clicked the remote like it was a trigger, slide. 1. Numbers, growth, budget lines, forecasts, then slide 2. 2. To ensure consistency across performance metrics. Coulter said, "We've reevaluated compensation across key roles." He clicked, highlighted a name. Vivian Cross, adjusted salary, 35%. There it was, on a screen in a room full of peers, broadcast like a footnote in a quarterly deck. "This change aligns her compensation with departmental benchmarks," he added, without looking at me, "and reinforces our expectations around efficiency output and forward-focused leadership." I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I simply listened. Then with a faint shrug, he added, "Vivian was part of Victor's team. We respect that chapter, but we're not here to maintain tradition. We're here to evolve." A few people nodded. Most didn't move. The slide disappeared. He moved on. My name was gone. No one said a word. I waited for the end of the meeting. When the final slide hit, I closed my folder. Stood slowly. The chair scraped softly against the floor. No dramatic exit. No slamming, no speech, just motion. I walked to the door. No one followed with their eyes. They didn't need to. They had already made peace with their silence. As I reached the threshold, Coulter's voice floated behind me. "We build futures here," he said. "Not monuments to the past." I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I didn't cry. I walked back to my desk. The hum of the system greeted me, soft and neutral. They thought I was done. They mistook my silence for surrender. They forgot who built the gears. They were still spinning on, and I was just getting started. I didn't slam a door. I didn't send a mass email. I didn't storm out with my box of desk plants and half-used sticky notes. I just sat quietly at my desk like I always had. But something had shifted, not around me, within me. I had been cut out of meetings, reassigned from accounts I had nurtured for years. My salary gutted publicly, my systems, my logic, my strategies, all brushed aside, like they were relics from a slower age. They were trying to erase me, but they forgot one thing. You can't erase the code if you don't understand how it was written. The blinking cursor on my screen stared back like an old friend, patient, familiar, unjudging. I moved my fingers over the keyboard, muscle memory. Did the rest. I wasn't logging into the standard interface. That door had been slammed shut. But I had built the walls, the floor, the ceiling, and I knew where the side doors were. 3 keystrokes, a timed delay, a pivot command, wrapped inside an innocuous JSON check. The system blinked. Welcome V Cross. Sys admin, there she was. The true heart of Halcyon and Crest. Not the polished dashboards Coulter presented to the board. Not the color-coded slides Ellis pasted from my old templates. This was the real engine. The thing that hummed beneath the surface and kept millions flowing from one ledger to another, and it still knew my name. I didn't design it for revenge. I didn't design it to crash. I designed it because once 3 years ago, an automation bug nearly cost us a $12 million deal. The system had moved too fast, skipped a layer of validation, sent an incomplete file to a partner in Singapore. They flagged it as fraud and suspended all pipeline collaboration for 2 months. It nearly gutted us. Victor Ames, my former boss, the man who never raised his voice but always made you feel heard, had walked into my office that night and said 5 words I would never forget. Build it so chaos asks permission. So I did. What they didn't know, what Coulter didn't know, was that underneath the clean lines of our platform was a woven network of safeguards, not sabotage, not traps, just brakes, thresholds, quiet checks, signals that said, wait, look again. Are you sure? Most of them were passive, invisible. They only kicked in when speed became recklessness, when files were moved without review, when funds were pushed without confirmation, when a human was skipped for the sake of efficiency. One by one, those thresholds were now blinking. Not red, not screaming, just pulsing, subtle like heartbeats under skin. 5 had triggered in the last 72 hours. If a 6th tripped, the system wouldn't crash. It would pause, it would hold, because that's what I had taught it to do. Not panic, not break, just wait for someone who still remembered the map. I leaned back in my chair. The office around me buzzed on, oblivious. Phones rang, emails stacked. Ellis stood at the corner with Coulter, both looking down at a printout with concerned brows. I sipped my tea. The back-end architecture was humming, and it was nervous. I didn't press any buttons, I didn't trip any wires. I simply left my hand where it had always been, on the wheel. That night, I stayed a little later than usual. Not because anyone asked me to. No one asked me anything anymore, but I wasn't staying for them. I was staying for her, the system, the thing I had poured years into. Not because it made me feel powerful, but because it made things work. Smooth, honest, clean. I opened the audit log. Every override request, every escalated action, every flag. Coulter's team had tried to push through without proper authorization, each one logged, each one time-stamped. They had been bypassing protections, quietly, repeatedly, thinking no one was watching, but someone was. She was. The system I built didn't need revenge, it didn't need validation, it just needed logic. And logic, my friends, has teeth. The next morning it began, 9:17 a.m. Wire transfer, MER1142B, stalled. No error, no flag, just pending, 9 to 2:21 a.m. Internal funds from escrow, blocked mid-process. 9 to 26 a.m. Global dashboard froze. The transaction tracker looped, blinking without response. By 9:30, $904 million was locked. No alarms, no red lights, just stillness. The tech floor shifted. I heard the change before I saw it. Chairs scraping, monitors blinking, analysts leaning forward, hands shaking slightly as they reloaded the same screens over and over. It stuck, someone whispered behind me. Pending loop. No block. Try again. Reset the node. Did anyone run the purge? Coulter's voice cut through the glass from the war room like a blade. I don't care whose protocol it is. Get it back online manually, override it. Just move the damn money. But the system wasn't listening to him, it was waiting for me. I didn't move. James from MIT was already sweating through his shirt. 2 interns flanked him, one on each side, firing commands like hailstones on a tin roof. Nothing worked. They didn't realize they were trying to brute force a lock that required a whisper. By 10:05 a.m., client emails started flooding in. No confirmation, broken chain. Escrow status not updating. One subject line caught my eye. Critical delay. Compliance breach if not resolved by 10:30. I leaned back. The 5th alert had been logged last night. I knew the 6th would fall soon, and when it did, the entire machine would halt, not collapse, just stop, like a hand placed gently over a spinning gear, and wait. At 10:18 a.m. my screen pinged. From Coulter Maddox. Subject now Vivian. Do you still have back-end access? Yes. Then fix it. I didn't break it. You know what I mean? Reset it. Release the flow. I typed slower. I warned you weeks ago. If validation chains were skipped, the system would suspend. Not crash, not error. Just wait. Silence, then disable it. No. Vivian, this isn't an error, Coulter. It's design. I didn't wait for his reply. I turned off my monitor, stood up, walked to the window and watched Boston move, cars slipping between traffic lights, steam rising from subway grates, people crossing streets with coffee in hand, and urgency in their shoulders. The world didn't know what was happening inside Halcyon Crest, but it would, soon. I didn't want revenge, I didn't want applause, I just wanted them to remember who kept the gears from locking. And right now, the machine was silent, waiting for the one person who still held the key. There are moments that don't look like turning points when you're living through them. They don't come with music, no slow zoom, no flickering light bulbs, or dramatic silences. They arrive quietly, like 9:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, like a wire transfer that simply doesn't go through. I was at my desk when it began, tea steeping on one side, system dashboard open on the other. The cursor blinked, steady, innocent, transfer number 11 or 2B, just another internal routing of funds, 7-figure move from escrow to vendor account. Routine, necessary, scheduled, and then pending. It didn't move. No error code, no red warning, just waiting. I refreshed, still pending. Then 2 more joined the queue, MR 1143A, MR 1144C, both stalled. I opened a side panel, scanned the audit trail, validation incomplete, no override signature, and just like that I knew the 6th threshold had tripped. The system was pausing, exactly as I built it to. 10 minutes later, I heard it. Not alarms, not shouting, just a shift, the kind of shift a building makes when its foundation cracks, chairs scraping, footsteps quickening. The low hum of people pretending not to panic. I looked over the edge of my monitor. James from IT was standing now. 2 others behind him, one holding a phone to his ear, nodding quickly, another muttering, "Run it again, try a bypass." I clicked open the logs, quiet, precise. The system wasn't down, it wasn't broken. It was doing exactly what I taught it to do. Hold. At 9:32 a.m., the first message from finance arrived. Confirm 3 wire transfers stuck mid-process, escrow frozen, dashboard not responsive. 3 minutes later, dashboard not loading beyond level 2, access, no error, no redirect. At 9:40 a.m., I saw it the moment the panic shifted, from whispers to waves. Coulter burst from the elevator, suit jacket, open tie, slightly off-center. He wasn't running, but he wanted to. His eyes scanned the room, locked onto James, then onto me. He turned and disappeared into the war room. The glass door clicked shut. I didn't move. By 9:45 a.m., the freeze had reached all global accounts, $4 million, held in place, no errors, no system crash, just a stillness that no one could explain. Just silence. Phones rang, emails stacked. The room buzzed like a beehive. Someone had kicked. Coulter's voice sliced through the wall, low but edged with panic. "I don't care what she wrote and override it. Sir, the override requires dual authentication from sysadmin level. Then find the damn admin. She's..." Don't say her name. I didn't need to hear more. I already knew how it would go. The system required 2 levels of clearance once the 6th threshold hit. One of those levels no longer existed. It was tied to Victor Ames. The other me. At 10:06 a.m., a new message popped up on my screen. From Coulter Maddox. Subject now. "Do you still have back-end access?" I typed. "Yes." "Then fix it." "I didn't break it, Vivian. I warned you. If you bypassed the safeguards, the system would pause. We need it back online, so follow the process. There's no time for that." Then wait. 10 seconds later, he was at my desk, in person. "Vivian." His voice was strained, tight behind the teeth. He looked down at me, like a man trying to hold on to control with his fingernails. You're going to fix this. Now I met his eyes. Calm still. I didn't break it, I repeated. You know what I mean? I stood slowly, not in defiance, just steady. You built this to freeze, I built it to wait, I said. When rules are ignored, when process is skipped, when leadership forgets why structure exists. He didn't like that word. Leadership. His mouth twitched. Override it, he said. No, you're being petty. No, Coulter, I'm being precise. Inside the war room, someone dropped a coffee cup. It shattered loud and sudden. No one looked. Everyone was too busy panicking. I walked to the touchscreen panel just outside the war room, tucked beside the light controls. It wasn't labeled. No one ever asked what it did. One-tap system. Query unlocked. I entered the code. The screen blinked once. Then again. System integrity. Verified. Protocol held release. Sequence available. I didn't press it, not yet. I turned to Coulter. He looked smaller now, not in height, in presence, like the shine had worn off, like the suit no longer fit. You built a bomb in our system, he hissed. No, I said, I built a brake. You think this proves something? I think it reminds people where the steering wheel is. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't threaten, I didn't even smile. I just walked away, left the screen blinking, waiting ready, letting him decide how long the silence would last. At 10:42 a.m., I received a new message from Douglas Klein, subject board emergency session, 11:30 a.m. No subject line, no details, just a request. Please be available on standby. They had realized it wasn't a system glitch. It was a leadership glitch. And the only one who still had the map had just walked away from the wheel. They didn't invite me to the 11th floor boardroom. Of course not. People like me rarely get invited to those kinds of meetings, especially not when we've made things inconvenient. But you don't always have to be in the room to be present. Sometimes your name arrives long before you do. Sometimes it's the only name they say with full attention. I watched Coulter step into the private elevator at 11:25 a.m. sharp. He was alone. No assistant. No laptop. He carried a single manila folder. I had seen him hold presentations with 12 slide decks and animated transitions. Today he carried paper. That said enough. His posture was straighter than usual, chin lifted, shoulders squared, but I could see it. The tension in his neck, the stiffness in his jaw, the way his left hand kept brushing against the folder like it was a shield. The elevator doors closed. Silence fell again. Douglas Klein, chairman of the board, had been silent for most of the year. I'd only spoken to him 3 times briefly, always indirectly, but I knew his style. He didn't like drama, didn't tolerate excuses, and believed data told all stories worth hearing. That morning, the data had screamed. From what I later pieced together through whispers at the printer, casual comments in the cafe, a forwarded calendar by accident. The meeting wasn't long. 37 minutes start to finish, but it was enough. They started with numbers. As they always did, Q4 reports, internal freeze, 9.4 million stalled across 4 global accounts, 3 missed transfers, 2 compliance violations, 1 federal inquiry, opened pending explanation. Then came the part that mattered, who wrote the core logic of the system, who designed the validation thresholds, who implemented the dual authentication freeze layer. Coulter paused, then admitted it, Vivian Cross. Douglas asked flatly, "Do you understand the structure she implemented?" Coulter said nothing. Another board member followed. "Can you override her design?" "I've tried," Coulter admitted. 3 times. Failed every attempt, and why? Douglas asked. Leaning back in his chair, was she removed from access? Silence. Coulter looked down at his folder. The room watched him, waiting. He didn't answer. He couldn't, because the answer wasn't technical. It was personal. And then, according to someone from legal, who later passed by my desk with a paper clipped to their tablet, Douglas closed his binder and said calmly, "You removed the one person who built the engine that keeps this company running. Then you panicked when it stalled and begged her to fix it." No one responded. "You cut her salary in front of the department she trained." You stripped her of projects she built. You erased her from systems she designed. And you thought that was leadership. When I heard that last part, I didn't smile, but I did sit back in my chair and let the words settle. He exited the boardroom at exactly 12:08 p.m. His steps were slower. His folder was still in hand, but now slightly creased at the corner. He didn't speak to anyone, didn't make eye contact. He didn't look at me, but others did. Not with pity, not with applause, just recognition, like something unspoken had shifted, like the center of gravity had moved. At 2:16 p.m., an email arrived. Subject advisory opportunity, flexible terms. It wasn't from Coulter. It wasn't even from HR. It was from someone in the board's internal staffing office. We would like to invite you to consult as a strategic advisor on operational design going forward. Terms are open rate, negotiable, timeline at your discretion. Remote option available. No apology, no reference to what had happened, just a clinical offer, a bandage for a wound they didn't want to acknowledge. I didn't reply, not because I didn't appreciate it, but because I had already moved on. At 4:03 p.m., Sonia from finance passed my desk, looking for a misplaced invoice file. I heard she said softly that he didn't even argue, just nodded and walked out with his badge deactivated. I didn't ask who she meant. We both knew. No headlines followed. No company-wide announcements. No dramatic exits. Just one line in the Friday update. Effective immediately. Coulter Maddox will be transitioning to lead operations at our Greenville branch population, 32,000, one office, 0 executive authority. A polite way to say, removed from relevance. No thunder, no fireworks, just silence. Some defeats don't arrive with humiliation. They arrive in resignation, and in time, they're forgotten. That evening, I sat by the large window in the break area. The winter light was fading. The city outside had begun to blur into golds and greys. Lyra passed by holding a tablet to her chest. She paused. I just got the email, she said. They offered me interim director. Strategy. I looked at her. Calm, curious. She swallowed. I wouldn't be here if you hadn't taught me. I know, I said. She hesitated. Thank you. I nodded once. Lead with clarity, I said. That's all the power you'll ever need. She smiled and walked away. Behind her, the screensaver on my monitor shifted. Soft glow-moving pattern. My initials still visible on the bottom bar. They had tried to erase me, but the system still remembered, because I never had to shout to be known. Sometimes silence is the loudest proof you've ever mattered. I didn't get a farewell party. No balloons. No sheet cake in the break room with my name spelled wrong in frosting. No "We'll miss you" card signed by people I barely knew, and I didn't want one. What I built here didn't live in confetti or kind emails. It lived in the way systems held under pressure. It lived in the way one well-timed silence could echo louder than a speech. It's funny how fast things move after the machine stops. Within 2 days of the freeze, they'd run internal reviews, reassigned accounts, and reorganized a quarter of the reporting structure. But it wasn't noise anymore. It was quiet, purposeful, a kind of recalibration that only happens after something vital gets exposed, or someone. My final login happened at 7:03 a.m. on a Thursday. The office was still dark. The heater clicked in the vents. Outside Boston, slept under a cold grey sky, and I sat with one last cup of tea. The system greeted me with its usual blink, but something about it felt different, not like it missed me, not like it cared, just like it knew that the person who had shaped its bones, the one who'd kept its edges smooth and its gears aligned, was preparing to let go. I didn't rush through it. I checked the audit trails one last time. No breaches, no escalations, just one system holding its breath, waiting. I placed my hand on the screen over the lines of cascading code I had designed years ago. No one else would ever read them like I did, and maybe that was the point. By noon, the update had gone live in the internal org chart. A quiet line. Effective immediately, Coulter Maddox will be transitioning to oversee operational support at our Greenville satellite branch. No mention of the board meeting, no record of the freeze, no acknowledgement of the real reason for the move. But anyone paying attention, they knew. I didn't celebrate, I didn't smirk, because real punishment doesn't always come with drama. Sometimes it's just a change in direction away from the light into irrelevance. I got the consulting offer later that afternoon. High compensation, project-based, total autonomy, no apology, no recognition of what had been taken or how, just a clean offer in black and white. I closed the tab, because they still didn't understand. It was never about the money. At 4:17 p.m., I packed a single box. Not the classic cardboard cliché, just a small, sleek file box I'd brought from home. It held one framed photo of my mother, a hand-carved paperweight from a retired coworker, and a fountain pen. Victor had once given me after our first successful system overhaul. I slid my keycard into the top drawer and shut it. That was it. No stage, no mic drop, just precision. I walked out without looking back. 3 blocks from my apartment sat a cafe I'd loved quietly for years. Mismatched chairs, fogged windows, jazz on low rotation. It was the kind of place where time seemed to loosen its grip. I ordered a black coffee, no milk, no sugar. Found a corner seat near the window, opened my laptop. The screen didn't light up with the halcyon crest. It lit up with Nova Core, my own platform. Just pieces, really fragments of strategy. System designs, consultation frameworks. I'd been shaping in silence for months. But something shifted after I walked out of Coulter's office. I no longer felt like I was building something against anyone. I was building something for me. As the dashboard loaded, a new message flashed: BNR Logistics. Phase 1, signed. I smiled. They had been one of Halcyon's biggest clients. I'd led their migration last year. Spent 2 nights on call walking their CFO through our encryption logic. He once told me over lukewarm coffee and 2-hour budget talks. Vivian, if you ever go solo, give us the first call. I thought he was joking. Apparently he wasn't. The next hour blurred. 2 more client messages, a signed NDA, a video call request from a firm I hadn't spoken to in over a year. They weren't following the company anymore. They were following the person who built the trust. I leaned back, let the buzz of conversation fill the air. No assistant to check my calendar, no team lead to request a slide deck, no badge to scan. Just me, a laptop, and enough sunlight to make the screen hard to read. And still, I had never felt more clear, more grounded, more mine. At 6:12 p.m., a message came in. From someone still at Halcyon. No name, just initials I recognized. They're still trying to figure out how you wired those protocols. We told them you were the blueprint. Now they believe it. I didn't reply. Some acknowledgements don't need answers. They just need space to land. I titled a new document Client Onboarding, Week 1, and I started typing, not from pressure, not from proving anything, just from motion, deliberate, quiet, free. Some people think silence is weakness, but I've learned it's a tool, a weapon, a boundary, a promise. Sometimes it's the only thing that makes them pause long enough to ask, who really built this? And sometimes that pause is all you need to be remembered, not as a name on a wall, but as the reason the system still works. I didn't leave with applause, but when the machine froze, they remembered me. Sometimes the loudest power is the quietest presence. Vivian was never the one to shout or seek the spotlight, but when everything fell apart, she was the only one who could fix it because she built it. The lesson is clear. Never underestimate the silent ones, those who observe, build and protect without fanfare, often hold the deepest strength. Titles can be taken, salaries cut, but true value is rooted in impact. If you're ever overlooked, remember you don't have to prove your worth loudly. Let your silence speak in moments when the system needs you and only you to move again.